Hey, everybody, it's Tuesday night. Where the heck would you be on a Tuesday? I always tell you, where would you be? You're right here. You're right here down in my basement with me. Because why? It's where the cool kids all meet. I'm going to tell you what, I used to be a cool kid. I even used to have hair, but, neither there, here, and there, but you know how it is. Anyway, we've got a great show for you tonight, but I got to really tell you guys real a quick story. We were out and about, and yeah, Wednesday was a whirlwind day. We went to I was in where the heck? Oh, I took a flight out. I had to do some PR work in Chicago. And hey, Peg, how are you? And then I flew up to Saginaw, and then we filmed the next day, Thursday, from 8:30 p.m. to 4:30 in the morning, and then I was back on an airplane at 5:30 in the morning. I came in. Hey, Deb, how are you? And it was great, and it's great. And the project is called Haunting on Adams Street, and it's I can tell you a little bit about it because the trailer is out now. So if you go on my page, my Facebook page, or whatever, you'll find it somewhere. And hey, Michelle, and let me tell you guys, it's an old funeral home. You walk in, you can still smell flowers. That's how it's just an old funeral home. It's full of director producer Steve Shippey's own personal collection. And a lot of these things came from cases that he actually worked. Now, you'll know Steve from doing Shock Docs. Oh my God. And this series is called Haunted Saginaw. So he's doing a lot of his hometown, and it's really a great thing that he's working with, and it's just so much fun. But it was an amazing experience, and I did a walkthrough, and I like doing walkthroughs. It's like what I do in Portals to Hell and all that. You do this walkthrough, and you do a little bit of connecting in, and you kind of figure out what's going on. And this place has got some mojo to it. You walk in, and it's like bang. As a matter of fact, we were doing a little bit of just a little appearance on a show while we were in the middle of filming, because it was for cancer. It was for cancer to raise money for a lady who they're trying to help her out, and it's just a wonderful thing, a little telethon. And as we're sitting there, started laughing. I look at Steve. I said, "Did you see that?" And there was like a shadow person. I don't know how, I can't explain it, but a little face, little shadow came out from where one of the viewing rooms were and went back. I just started laughing. I said, "Why? Where else could you go and see that?" So that was pretty unique. And of course, it's always a whirlwind. You know how I am with planes, And of course, Detroit did not disappoint this time either, because it was just it was an odyssey. That's the best way I can say it. It was an odyssey. Hey guys, how are you? And also yesterday, no, what day is it? Today's Tuesday. So Sunday, we actually took in a play at the Starry Night Theater, which is also called the Ghost Life Theater. And that place is super haunted, and the play was great, but every time I go in there, it's just like a weird feeling. It was an old German church, and now it's a theater. So it's phenomenal. It's just a phenomenal thing. But anyway, guys, listen, we have a great guest today. We have a really super, super, super show for you. How can I describe her? She, we have our Elviras, and before the Elviras, of course, we had our Vampirellas, and I'm going to be honest with you, they were just mere characters. They were just, we opened up the storybook, and there they were. That's what they were. You turn the TV on or go to the movies, and that's just what you saw. Tonight's guest is she's a true craft practitioner, which I think is phenomenal. But she puts the fun back in goth, because I'm going to, you guys know how I am. You guys know that I'm always out there. Hey, John Kennedy, a living legend, is actually watching us today. Deb and Johnny, how are you, Kathy? And I think the biggest problem is that a lot of people take themselves a little bit too seriously. Really do. And I know that in the craft, because I see these elbows are a little bit worn out from being rubbed, when I'm out there hanging out with the cool kids. And people don't realize that things should be lighter. Things, even though you were talking about goth and vampires, and we're talking about all this, things that go bump in the night. Sometimes it needs to be a little bit lighter. And our guest tonight really kind of puts the fun back into being goth, but also she is an internet influencer. And I'm going to just tell you right now, before I kind of knew her, I knew her through Instagram. And I was always thrilled by how she would go and break things down, and talk about the craft in a common sense way where you would, people should understand it. Because listen, I hang out with people that work high magic. Hardcore ritual. You know what? You follow the book. You got a little book, but when you walk into the circle, here's your book. I thought I was going back to church, during Lent or something, and it doesn't always have to be that way. So we're going to talk a little bit about her fascinating past. We're going to talk a little bit about her fascinating future. We're going to talk a little bit about what she believes, why and how she got into this crazy ass mess that we're all part of. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you ships at sea, please welcome the one and only Hex Baby Jules Nolan. Hey, Jules, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tim. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for being on the show tonight. And everybody was really thrilled that you came on. I was extremely thrilled that you came on because of the fact that, listen, your almost better half is not your better half. You're the better half of the better half. And you
Oh,
know
thank
what?
you so much.
It's true. It's true. And even before I really knew who you were, I knew you through Instagram. And I always thought it was kind of fascinating that you took the time to really kind of reach out and help people. So, I mean, let me ask you this. How did you get involved with this? I mean, a lot of people always, are kind of shocked that I started being involved in this crazy world back in the 1970s. Yes, Jules, yes, I could be your grandfather. But how did you get involved in this?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. There's a number of reasons why. Predominantly my mom. My mom's the one who really kind of pushed me to pursue spirituality, like outside of Christianity, to pursue just like music, goth culture, things of that nature. So I really credit my mom, and both sides of my family are also very spiritual in a sense. So that's really the reason.
So it's just a natural progression, basically.
Yes, yes. It was never a phase.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing the biggest problem I do have is that people chip at this. It's not really a lifestyle for them.
Sure.
People will go and, to me, it's like they're pretending it's Halloween rather
Yes.
than embracing it. And I think people are doing a disservice to themselves by not embracing it enough. Now, again,
Sure.
I mean,
Yes, I'm inclined to.
I'm kind of sort of like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to go and say, you have to really, here's your rule book and you have to, put your Doc Martens on and let's get out there and, get your, roll up your imitation tattoo sleeves if you don't have tattoos. Uh, but people, but people aren't getting it. People sometimes, they just, and I'm not saying, you should be like goth, like if you can't be goth at your workplace or wherever, you know, but goth isn't goth more of a mentality, more of a state of mind rather than just, dressing up.
Yeah, well, you gotta think it encompasses more than just like the aesthetic. It's also the music, the literature, the film. There's a lot of things that encompass the whole genre. Lots of subgenres as well. A lot of people fall into the gothic category.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that some people treat it like a costume.
Right. And that's my biggest problem because again, uh, you can always tell hardcore. You can tell hardcore because they have that. There's a certain there's just that certain air where everything is perfect, and you can tell the ones that go to the spirit stores at Halloween and buy
Oh
the
yes.
and buy the the costumes. Now, let me ask you about this. When you embrace this almost 24 hours a day, and
Yeah.
do you find that you get like adverse reactions? Now, like today, I have my Buckland. I ran around today. I had my Buckland Museum T-shirt on,
Sure.
and I got to tell you that I did get some side glances. You know,
Yeah.
as, you know,
Yes.
old guy walking through a supermarket with his Buckland T-shirt on. With a witch on the front.
Sure. Yeah.
People give you that side glance. People kind of like, I
Yeah.
don't know about him. What about you? Do you often get that? I mean, I can, I can understand it, but I mean, on the other hand, it's sort of like, well, I mean, I don't wear sports clothing or a jersey.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my partner Calvin can attest for it. We get just the strangest reactions. I mean, why are you dressed for a funeral? Like the silly stuff like that, or would you have a rough night? Like, it's things like that, the backhanded compliments, as you will. Yeah, people just are kind of shocked to see people still being goth, I guess. I don't know, like the trend never died. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's been around since the Victorian era.
Right. This is what, but
Yeah.
see, now people don't realize that, I mean, you can actually, whoops, over here. Well, there we are. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
actually see
Oh,
over
yeah.
there. That's part of my post-Victorian morning ritual collection.
Oh, yeah.
And people just don't realize that it's always been here. And if you look at, you can look at the 1920s, you can look at the 40s, you can see goth
Mhm.
in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
Well,
70s,
60.
80s. Oh, yeah.
Listen,
70s
60.
goth is
So we won't. We'll skip the disco. We'll skip the 70s
yes.
with disco. I
Yeah, Afro
survived disco. Yeah, we'll just kind of hop over that. Although there was a lot of red velvet, I will say that there was
it
a lot
was.
of red
Yep,
velvet out there.
crushed velvet. Oh, yeah.
People,
I was wearing black
people.
velvet right now, yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But I mean, we started going back into the 90s, and there was like a cultural backlash to what was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost a backlash to punk because uh, punk music
As
was
well.
like something that was like really, the whole punk culture actually, it just blew up. And then goth sort of like said, no, we're going to go and we're going to walk our own way,
Oh, yeah.
and we're going to be our own people.
Oh, yeah.
And it went, and I think it was forced underground for a while, and then it started to build up popularity. And I remember when just before Interview with a Vampire, uh,
Oh, yeah.
the actual book came out, it started to rebuild. And I know there was pockets of it across the country, and then it really blossomed.
Oh, yeah.
What is it about goth? What is it what do you feel is so intrinsic that you embrace it to that point?
Well, I always tell people black is my comfort color. It's just easier to plan outfits in that way. So if we're going very materialistic, it's that reason. But I don't know. I'm always just a very melancholic, romantic person, and there's something so
Mhm.
inherently romantic about just like mostly goth literature. I mean, I have a whole tattoo sleeve for Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, just anything that's dark and spooky and macabre, it always just called to me because it's against the grain. And people kind of, I don't know, they look at you like, ooh, like what are you into that for? So it's always been trying to go against the grain and I don't know, fall in love with like the darker aspect of life.
I've always it's funny because I mean, growing up, uh, I was exposed to spiritualism very
Sure.
early, and the big sunflower thing, and everybody,
Oh yeah.
everybody dressed up as like, as beautiful as peak. Let's put it this way: everybody was as dressed up as beautiful as Calvin was in those photos that you guys I saw from Salem,
Oh
and
yeah.
I mean, everybody would dress up in that way, and but yet it was too bright, it was too light, and to me I thought that there was something missing. And I again, I loved reading all of the classics,
Oh yeah.
and I was brought up in the black and white uh Frankenstein and Dracula movies, and to me it became more of, I would say, more of a hidden, like a hidden thing for me.
Sure.
And now, of course, I mean, who cares? They just look at me now and say
Yeah.
he's as strange as everybody else. But people don't realize, again, it's all part of a lifestyle. And there's a lot of different little subgenres within the goth communities, and the literature is amazing. The literature is
Sure.
amazing. And I have to even say, to expand it, there is the Viking goth music that I have just
There is.
discovered
There,
beyond
there is.
headbanger music.
Yes, there's
It's
Nordic goth, yeah. Swedish
Which is
goth, like all
amazing.
that. Yes, yep.
Yeah. I just discovered it, and it's amazing. And I mean, I think I'm more productive when I listen to that than anything else.
Yeah, I think
Now
so too, yeah.
now listen, let me ask you this. Now let's just okay, we've explored your background. We've explored your massive your goth persona, your inner goth soul here. Let me ask you this. Now we start talking about the craft.
Yeah.
You're not and I call them chippers. I shouldn't call them that, because that's sort of a derogatory term. But you're like full blown into the craft. What tradition do you follow?
Mostly Celtic. I have dual citizenship in Ireland, and I lived there as a college over there, so I was able to really connect with my heritage while I was over
Hmm.
there. I've been a solo practitioner for 11 years now without family or guidance. So I heavily like rely on Celtic practices. That's really what it is.
Do you find when you were over there? Let me ask you this, because I knew the late Ray Buckland, and of course, I mean I mean he was heavily influenced by Gardner. When you were over there, and again, this is not going back to when everything was still hidden, but is it more publicly accepted there than, let's say, paganism is here in the United States?
Yes, it is. A lot of my family who's still over there are still pagan, I suppose. They are very superstitious, believe heavily in elementals, in spirit. So it is much more common. I think that unfortunately the U.S. is very, I would say, almost Christian centered. So
Right.
even people who aren't Christian inherently would still be more inclined to believe that system of belief, essentially.
See, I mean, over here, that's the one thing, even with my religion, even though it is a homegrown religion,
Sure. Yeah.
start in Hydesville. I mean, we're talking an hour and a half away, hour and a half drive away from my house to where the
Sure.
spiritualist religion took root. Uh, it's still something that is sort of, I won't say looked down upon, but looked on with suspicion. And I know that some of the pagan, some of my pagan brethren, and they really struggle with it because of the fact that they still find that there is, I guess, a
Stigma.
prejudice, a stigma,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
public, and
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. Let me. I here's a question I wanted to ask you.
Good.
Listen, everybody's a Christian until they have to go and hex somebody. Do you ever get that? I've gotten that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had people, I have clients who are still Christian, but will be like, "Oh, my ex-husband, dot, dot, dot," and I'm like, "Are we sure we want to do this?" You know?
It's so true. And when we start talking about uh, working for people,
Sure.
have you found that it's better to teach them how to do it themselves, or that you just got sometimes you just got to say, let me do it. Let me take the autonomy out of your hand before you cut yourself, and you know what I mean? What I mean to me, let me ask you: do you feel that it's more effective for
Mhm.
someone to perform the spell by themselves, for themselves?
Yes, the reason is because I find that your personal craft, it comes from a place of power within you. It's usually a very strong emotion that you're feeling, and when somebody is doing it for you, you can't always elicit the feeling that the client necessarily is feeling in that moment. So what I would normally do is kind of just give them the step by step like rubric of this is how you do it. If you need
Hmm.
further assistance, please reach out. I'll help you. It has gotten to like I've been in situations before where I've been like, all right, well, I will assist you in this, but you need to describe to me specifically what you want to happen and what you're feeling. Um, I find that's usually the best way to go about it.
Now let me okay next as we're working up the hierarchy here.
Oh yeah.
We're talking now. I practice chaos magic,
Okay.
and
Perfect.
the reason why I
That's
do it is because I don't have time. I don't have time to be sitting there uh dedicating myself to one specific deity. I don't have time to be sitting there working on, this is the hierarchy of the spell that we need. I can't
yeah.
use the A in order to accomplish B, even though it makes more sense to do it that way. When you say Celtic,
Yeah.
because I know some Celtic people, that's why
Oh,
I'm going to ask you this.
that's okay.
Do you take a do you mix it? Do you mix and match like I do?
Yes, I think it's the best way to do it. People call me like the occult librarian because I like to read books that are modern, 20 years prior, and then as far back as possible, all around the same
Hmm.
type of subject, just to get like a well-rounded idea. And then from there, I will kind of determine what makes the most sense to me and to my personal craft.
Do you find that a lot of times that it was a heavy evolution from point A to where we are now? Like,
Yes.
like it's sort of not right. It's sort of not the same.
I think it's because people's ethics have changed, and because of that, it affects the literature that's put out for specific paths. I think
Hmm.
it's heavily opinion based, if you will, based on where we are at in society. I have books on like Chiron's book of palmistry is drastically different from the one in the 90s. So I think as society changes, unfortunately,
I often see, because again, I knew Ray. Um, I saw I used to read his early work,
sure.
and then how he left everything and he developed a new path. And
Mhm.
I asked him one day, "Why did you do it?" And he said to me, "Because it just made sense."
Yes.
And I was like, "Okay, that I can't argue with that." And I do you
Yeah.
feel that the evolution, and I think this is where a lot of mainstream religions have problems, is
Yeah.
that the evolution of what goes on, they become stagnant. And do you feel that the energy in which we use in order to accomplish these goals, do you feel that sometimes that energy is just has changed so much over the years that it's no longer viable, you can't really use it again?
Yes, 100%. I think there's environmental factors, societal factors, even like psychological factors, like just things that we see and feel in our day to day has changed so drastically
Hmm.
from when those pieces of literature came out, that now you kind of have to, it's not a one size fits all anymore. It's like you kind of have to pick and choose what works best.
Exactly. That's the same thing with the spiritualist religion. I mean, I've read hundreds of books that were written during the golden age, and you sit there and you think to yourself,
Oh,
this is bullshit. And you
it's
get to that point
yeah,
where,
not realistic.
wow, it doesn't you can tell that it is no longer viable. You can tell that it is not something that would work today, and even if you try it, it doesn't work. I have a
Yeah.
question for you. Let me find it here, and it's from my good friend Peg. What role does intention play in your craft? That's a good question. Thank you, Peg.
That's an excellent question. Yes. Well, everybody's intent is going to be different based on the situation, the type of spell work. I like to draw Usually I'm very feeling based. I am a Cancer, so everything's very feelings based for me. So when I'm putting intent into something, I make sure that I'm drawing from a specific feeling inside of me to elicit my desired result. So say I'm doing something for prosperity. I'm going to think about how it feels to get a paycheck, and I'm going to set my intent on feeling that way as a result. So that's kind of how my intent plays into it. It's very feelings based and kind of like what the desired feeling is at the end of the spell.
Here's another question. That
Again,
just I just got a text, and the
yeah,
question is the question is ethically. Ethically, this is a tough one because I mean I
that's
kind
okay.
of follow Estrega. You know, my friend Onyx Estrega, and she's funny because she goes, we don't really have a gray area. We have one side or the other, and we have a line,
Sure,
and it's sort of like it really sort of like depends where we're standing at the time and what we're thinking.
sure.
Ethically, have you ever had to cross that line into a little bit of darkness in order to achieve something that you need through spell work?
Yes, I would say so. I do worship deities, obviously, and have had to do baneful magic for myself and also for clients. So I have a personal code of ethics of things that I will not do. There, it is very black and white for me. I usually don't like to do anything with the deceased. I usually don't like to do anything that would affect children. I'm very apprehensive about love magic, specifically because of some of the consequences. So there definitely are things that ethically would cross the line for me, and I would only do in very, very dire circumstances.
You just hit something on the head with that really resonates with me
Sure.
about love magic.
Oh yeah, it's a
You
big
know,
topic. So
oh my god, it's like people are like, can you? And I'm thinking, yes, I can. But here, deep down inside of me, I'm thinking, do you really want to be with this person? Is this something that you really want? Have you really thought about, you know, the back end of what's going on this? Do you really want to work in this, to bring this person into your life?
sure, I agree.
And and I'm okay. I'm a little bit of a softie. Okay, I'll just say we can do something that may go and attract.
Yeah, I always go,
Yeah.
generally speaking, we can try.
Yes.
But I think my biggest issue with love magic, when it's not consensual, like, so, okay, we're already treading past my code of ethics.
Right.
I don't,
Right.
consent is a very big thing for me. I think it should be in people's craft. So the second you cross that line, we're already into baneful territory. Okay, so we're going against people's free will. Um, if you are trying to make someone fall in love with you or leave another person for you, is that because you are manipulative and abusive, or what is going on here? Because if
Exactly.
you're risking them becoming a zombie or having a very toxic connection with you. So, you know, that's how I feel about it.
Well, let's face it, because a lot of times people don't have that ethic.
Yes. Yes.
And as a medium myself, there's nothing more abhorrent than watching a woman who shall be nameless right now run up to people in a reality TV show, which I know is scripted, and these people have already had to sign waivers, and blurt out something that she's getting.
Sure. Yeah.
There is a fine line, and you've got to watch what we're doing. And another thing that here's another one that comes back.
Okay.
I'm not a big rule of three guy. I'm not. I mean, yeah, karma up to a point, but it's like this. What are we with the Ten Commandments here? The rule of three: send it out. It's going to come back at you. Personally, I don't believe that, because I believe if you're working ethically,
Yes.
ethically, you have nothing to fear with that.
Correct. I 100%, I could not agree more. Yes. It all comes down to personal codes of ethics. If you personally do not believe you're doing something unethical, nothing's going to happen because you firmly believe that.
Exactly. Exactly. See, I knew we would get along,
Yes,
you know?
I know. Calvin spoke so highly of you. I'm so glad we're doing
Listen, he's got to aim higher, kid. He's got to aim
this.
higher. But you know, the biggest problem I think I have with so many different people that are out there is that they take this high moral ground when they work with the craft, and by that I mean uh, we can do no wrong.
Sure, like holier than thou. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't get that. And I mean, I've met people within like the hoodoo communities that
Sure,
also do that, and the Santeria communities
sure.
that do that.
There's a
And
prestige that comes with that, though, so I can kind of understand a little more.
well, yeah, but you have to, you know, again, you have it's what we do is walk a fine razor's edge,
Yes, absolutely.
and it's easy to fall off in either way. The one thing I can say is the only thing that I have to watch out for is my ego, because my ego is the size. You guys live up in that area, so my ego is the size of Rhode Island.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know
I
that
see.
it has to be brought in. But you know, you have to when we start working with this, I I have to come from almost a place of like of neutrality,
Yeah,
because otherwise you can't influence it with your own thoughts. You can't influence you have to it has to be 100%. It's almost like when we're doing clearings in these different locations where you have to really come from, you know, you have to step aside and let yourself work when
yeah,
you are working. Now I got 1,001 questions,
that's okay.
Jules. I'm just, you know,
Perfect.
so I'm just rambling. uh
Yeah,
when you start actually working,
yeah.
what is your state of mind? Because a lot of people often ask, you know, how do you what is your thought process? And I always just say to them, I don't even have a thought process. It's almost like an automatic thing. I'm working with, you know, a book of shadows or something, and
Mm,
I'm just like, you know, I'm just like a cog. That's all I am. I'm not doing anything, you know. I'm not personally doing it. It's
sure.
a motion. What about you?
I would almost be inclined to agree. Again, if I'm doing just run of the mill, just normal, almost like mundane, if you will,
Hmm.
it's like a system. It's just you're going to autopilot and you just kind of do it. And inherently, I am kind of just focused on a goal at that point. If I'm doing something a little bit deeper, where I'm going to invoke a deity or something like that that I worship, that's a little bit more labor intensive and you have to be in the right mindset because you're now involving like a third party. So
Yeah.
that's a little different.
When you're working out, we're going to get into your internet gig, which I love.
Yeah.
Um, let's go, and I just want to ask you this because a lot
Oh,
of people, it's so funny. If I open up my book of shadows, I have more defensive spell work than I have anything else, and it's you know, shut the f up spells, you know,
sure.
and things of that nature. When we start working with them, how important is it to be guiltless or blameless? This is something that I kind of always ask people and try to judge for myself. If these people, you know, did they do something to, you know, maybe escalate a problem, or did they do something that
Sure.
is this a flippant request?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what's your process on that? What's your thinking on that?
Well, it depends because I've definitely declined service to clients before based off of their request. Some people they forget it's not like the movies, and there's some things that we simply can't do realistically. I mean,
Hmm.
unless some divine intervention happens, you can't make a whole group of people forget things. You can't bring back a deceased loved one. Like it's like things like that. Um, I I mean, I usually operate on the basis of, okay, the client is giving me the information. I am just somebody who provides the service,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, and I can detach myself from it. So I usually don't ask any real, much more deeper questions than what they're giving me, unless it seems like it's against my code of ethics. That's when I'm usually like, I'm sorry, I'm probably not the right practitioner to do this for you. I would recommend someone else.
Here's another question for you. What do you think of all the fly by nights that are opening up shops all over the place,
Sure. Yeah.
uh, providing questionable services,
Sure.
and have not really dedicated themselves to the knowledge of what you do.
Yeah.
Uh, do you think that is it a buyer beware thing, or is it sort of like? And because I know myself, I just put my hands up and say that's fine, whatever whatever you're doing is fine. Uh,
Yes.
but how do you feel deep inside? Because because you can tell how I feel about it.
My true feelings? Yeah, I'll give you my true feelings. Well, it depends. It's a double-edged sword because if you're giving somebody like an actual finished product, I mean, like a
Right.
spell satchel, a candle, or something, anything like that, um, and the client doesn't necessarily have to do much for it, that's a buyer beware for me. That's a this might not work type of situation. Now, if it is a person who's into crystals and herbs and divination devices and things like that, the client is the one who really initiates that power and can channel whatever they have through it. So again, that's why it's a double-edged sword because if the client is initiating it, they have a better success rate usually. But if a practitioner who's not fully invested is initiating it, might not go the way they want it to. So buyer beware.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I I'm a solitaire myself. My little sister is, and I mean, because first of all, Jules, I don't like people.
I
We'll
know.
just throw that right. We'll just throw that right out there. We'll
Yeah,
just put that right out there. But I mean, I belong to a spiritualist church, but I'm not active anymore.
sure.
I'll attend, but let me ask you about. I think the biggest problem I have with like, well, I'll just put it out there. A
Yeah.
lot of times, covens
Okay. Here
become
we go.
more than just magical gatherings.
Yeah.
They become
We can say the C word, right?
so they become like bowling leagues. They
Yeah.
become like so
I agree. Yeah,
why
there's
do you think that is it because like it's a common, people are thrilled to find each other, or is it just get to be even more and then drama gets in, and that kind of destroys it for me? Do you feel it's better to perhaps start off, let's say, in a coven and learn a little bit, or and then follow it up with your own research, or do you feel it's good to be in a coven, or do you feel like you should just go and maybe mentor under one person and just work from there?
I mean, that's the question, Tim. At the end of the day, that's what everyone wants to know. My best advice is personal research and figuring out your own personal code of ethics before ever jumping into a one-on-one mentorship, a
Hmm.
coven, anything like that.
Hmm.
You don't want there to be a hierarchy influencing your personal magic. You
I
don't.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree 100%. Influences. Biggest, let's say, biggest couple influences on your whole perception of everything. Goth, your perception of working within the craft.
Yeah.
These are because I know myself. I always find it fascinating because for every guest I have, they always throw me a curveball someplace where I've like, oh, okay, right. So, what's your biggest? Who are your biggest influences?
My biggest influences, well, my great grandmother Alice, she was a tasseomancer. She read tea leaves, and
Oh,
she
that's awesome.
so that's a big deal for me. Somebody I always kind of idolized in that way. My dad's mother, Christine, she is very spiritual, and she I don't know, she talks in like a transatlantic accent, so she really inspired I don't know, professionalism in me. Florence Welch from Florence and the Machine is a practitioner and also a musician, so I
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
heavily respect and rely on her. And then other than that, it was really, my cousin Billy, he's a drag queen and also a tarot reader, and he really helped me kind of get into the field. So it's a lot of family, I would say. A lot of
That's
family was
awesome.
really the reason.
Now, okay, if you didn't have family,
Yeah,
let's exclude family.
sure.
Who out there would you think uh, would be a good influence, not only for you but for other people?
For other people, that's a great question. I mean, it's very difficult to say literature because a lot of unfortunately the really well-known authors are not really the best people.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I would say honestly, the best thing I ever did for myself to feel like super connected to my craft was getting in touch with my heritage, and meeting people who are also from the same heritage who practice the systems that I wanted to practice. That definitely was just the biggest influence I could have ever asked for.
See, I was very lucky. Again, I met Ray Buckland up at Lilydale years ago,
Exactly.
and I'm not a fan of. I've read his books. Don't get me wrong. And Ray,
Sure.
please don't. Ray, don't come down and wake me up in the middle of the night and shush
I have
me.
his books,
You
it's
know.
same
But
publicity.
I found them a little bit lacking. Scott Cunningham was good. Gardner, he was way out there with a lot of his stuff is S&M based, which is interesting to read.
Yeah,
Aleister Crowley, when you start
little
reading
out
about
there.
him, you just shake your head going, I can't believe this guy survived as long as he did, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
But I have to say, like with Ray Buckland,
Sure.
it wasn't what he wrote, it's what he said.
Okay.
And when you talk to him, you learned more in a conversation sitting next to him on a porch than you would learn in any book that he wrote. And that to me was an amazing, amazing gift.
Sure.
And and he could answer just about any question you ever had. And
Love
so
that.
I'm a big believer in mentorship because
Yes,
uh,
definitely.
even as an instructor myself, it's tough for me to go and well, I'll write it down and here, read this.
Yeah.
It's not there. But the one-on-one mentorship is what you need, and I have to agree with you. Uh, my buddy Anne Lefebvre, and if everybody, and by the way, Anne Lefebvre had an unfortunate little accident, and she's doing well. But I just want to everybody send a little healing towards my buddy Anne Lefebvre so that she continues to heal. Uh, and because she sent me photos and I went, ooh, that looks like it hurt. But so she's doing well. But Anne wants to know, Tim, Jules, do either of one of you read tea leaves? And I'll tell you what, I know how to read them. I don't read them on a regular basis, but I do know how to read them. What about you? Do you use them?
I'm the exact same. Right now, I still am a little paranoid from COVID, so being in person doing tasciomancy is a little
Yes,
nerve-wracking, especially because 'cause you're touching a cup that someone drank from. If I had a brick
yes.
and mortar shop one day, I would absolutely offer it as a service in person, though.
What's your favorite form of divination?
Oh, great question. I would be biased and, to not say tarot. Obviously, I've been a
Hmm.
professional reader for 8 years, but I do have to throw in there, Ogham is the, ancient Celtic, rune
Yes,
system. It's the ancient Celtic
yes.
language. I love Ogham. It's one of
You're
my
the only
favorite.
one. You're the first one I know that actually reads them.
Yes, it's
Because
very
everybody's Nordic. Everybody's Nordic.
oh, no.
You don't
Yeah.
get Irish. That's phenomenal.
I know, yeah, Calvin is actually the one who really pushed me to he was like, "Why don't you try this? You got tarot, just try it," and so I just got really serious with it, and I made my own set and everything out of sticks, and
Oh my God,
I'll
perfect.
scry with them and everything, so it's fun, yeah.
It's like with me reading the bones.
Yes, exactly.
It's
Is
just
it osteomancy, right? Yeah.
yeah. You have to push yourself to that point where it's like or stones or whatever whatever you throw in front of you, you got to be able to read them,
Yeah.
and it's really kind of neat because once you get that system in there in your
Oh, yeah, it's like
you can
riding a
understand
bicycle. Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly it. Now you know what I want. Now it's time for that golden time. I want to know all about how the heck you got. Why did you feel that it was important to be an influencer? Because and again, Jules, I got to commend you. I got to commend you for what you do, because I remember like I'd be sitting there, and I'd be like doing one of these, like on Zoom on Instagram, it's old folks like, watching all this stuff going, oh, look at all these youngsters, doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And one day, one of your Instagram TikToks or whatever came up, I forget what it was, and I was like, wow, she's actually taking the time to teach people who are just starting out. I thought, wow, oh my God, that's great. Why did
Yeah.
you do that?
Tim, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that I was disappointed by the, witchcraft content that was on social media, when I
Hmm.
first started. A lot of fear mongering, a lot of "Don't go out during the blood moon, like, you'll lose your pregnancy," like, things like that, and I was just
Hmm.
like you are really scaring people. Like, this is not okay." Again, Calvin was really the one who was like, "Hey, like, try it out." When I first started, I was reading, I collect books. I was reading literature from the 1870s on TikTok. And then I was like, "All right, let's do a witchcraft video and just see what happens." And I went from 1,000 followers overnight to 25,000 followers off the first video. So
Wow.
I was like, I guess there's a market for people being sincere and genuine with the craft. So
It's, again, knowing Ray Buckland, Raymond was a giggler. Raymond was a happy person. Uh, I found that so much of it that's out there on YouTube is dark, and the people that are doing it, and I don't know if they're doing it because they want to create a persona for themselves rather than actually going and presenting what may be the truth. And you hit that the don't go out there in the blood moon, you'll lose your pregnancy. That's Appalachian hoodoo. That's Appalachian hoodoo. That's big time. I know a lot of them from North Carolina and a lot of the folkways. But
yeah,
I think you hit the nail on the head because so many people want something that's genuine, something that is not always like, make sure you take all of your crystals out and put them in a big basket and
yes,
put them in the moon. And it's
and
like,
the moon.
yeah, it's like, well, there are other ways of doing things.
Correct,
And
100%.
and I think also when I was watching some of your videos, you actually hit upon some of the not so common ideas and
Oh yeah,
practices, which is I thought was refreshing because for every like 1,000 videos of someone going and saying, "Okay, what we're going to do today is," you actually brought something that was fresh. Now, where do you get your ideas from? Is this something that you're like kind of, if you're like me, I'm watching the trends. I watch the trends constantly. And so is this something that you watch the trends and say, listen, this is an area that I think really needs to be addressed?
Well, some of my earlier videos, yes. A lot of things about protection when I first started, I felt were very important because I find that, baby witches or however they are referenced, when they begin, they're always like, "Where do I start?" And I always, without a shadow of a doubt,
Hmm.
say, "With protection, you protect yourself, protect your mind, your
Right.
body, and your spirit." So I did a lot of that stuff in the beginning. I actually really follow the moon phases and correlate my teachings based off of that so people can.
Really? Wait a minute, how do you do that? I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, so every moon phase, waxing, waning, the gibbous, the crescent, everything like that has specific correlations to crystals, to rituals, to herbs, to deities, to a plethora of things. But I always find that kind of scheduling videos like that will make people feel more inclined to actually participate in the phase of the moon or the astrology and astronomy that is overhead that during that time period. So I really try to go back to like pagan beliefs, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Do you find that now, as a spiritualist,
Sure.
I know that even in the late 1800s, early 1900s, American spiritualism became so diluted from its
Yes.
original forms. And again, I'm a purist because Hydesville and the Fox family is like an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes drive from
Oh,
my home right now.
yeah.
And do you feel that the American pagan society as a whole, and I'm just not picking on one sector, I'm not one tradition, do you think it's becoming a little bit more diluted than what may be, let's say, if you went back to the Isles or even if you went into Europe?
Yes, and the main reason is unfortunately because, people predominantly get their information from short form video media, and you can say anything during that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are kind of changing their practices because of that, and it is becoming very diluted. Um,
Do you feel a lot of it is because of the fact that everybody wants to be a good witch and not a bad witch? And I'm going to throw that out in its purest sense because I'm going to be honest with you. Uh, I don't have that. again, I don't have that gray area where I really watch,
Yeah.
and I always tell people, you have to, you know, you have to kind of dance with the devil in order to understand what's going on in heaven. Do you feel that perhaps people are too afraid of being in balance, where they listen, oh, I don't mind, let's do some love and prosperity spells and we'll do this and that, but I don't know if I want to do the darker stuff. I don't know if do you feel that do you think balance is so important, and do you think so many people right now, especially when you're first starting out,
Sure.
is people are afraid of what may happen if they kind of cross that line?
Yeah, 100%. I think that maintaining a balance between even just saying dark and light, I think is so like it's very specific to even just say that.
Yeah,
Remember that like as people, we have like positive and negative emotions, and they're not bad inherently. Like we're supposed to just feel and emote. That's what we're supposed
right,
to do.
right,
When you're only focusing on the positive emotions, like part of you is going to suffer and not feel expressed, and you're going to feel stagnant in your craft. Like, if you're having a bad day and you're angry, do something productive about it. Don't just like sit and fess
exactly.
and hope for prosperity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I always remember Ray saying stuff like, "You can't be a fuzzy bunny, Tim. You
Yes.
can't be a fuzzy bunny." I always remember he'd say that. He goes, "You gotta push yourself. Don't worry about, and even in mediumship, because I do a
Yeah.
lot of clearings, and I do handle, I used to handle darker cases. I'm not
Sure.
as active anymore as I used to be, but he used to say, you have to push yourself. You have to be able to go and understand and experience in order to be effective. And I know,
What you're against, though, to like have conviction against it and know what you're up against. I think it's important.
I think what happens is, I think a lot of people who are introduced into these some coven societies, and I'm going to listen, it's me, Tim Shaw. You can get me at Black Cat Lounge 1 at yahoo.com. Uh, I think sometimes the coven society, as a whole, some of them are just too love and light. That's
Love
the
it.
best way I can say it. It's almost like the love and light metaphysical communities.
I call
Uh,
it toxic positivity. That's what I call
yes, yes, it is.
it. Yes.
And people just don't get it. And I think people are afraid to cross that line.
Yes.
And you gotta be able to go and push yourself in order to be better
Yeah.
and to be more effective. What would you say to someone that is afraid of crossing that line?
Well, I would wanna know what the reason is first. Is the reason because you don't wanna confront, like, the negative emotions you feel within yourself?
Hmm.
Because if that's the case, there are safe, productive ways to do that. You could always go to therapy, but, I find that most of the time when people say they're scared, it's because of, I don't know, repressed Christian fear,
There you go.
usually.
Yeah.
That's usually what it is. Even if they're not from a Christian household, it is so ingrained in us because of the US education system that we're afraid of devils, we're afraid of demons, and that I think that's what kind of guides a lot of people and why they judge us so much.
I think a lot of it is the old adage, there's no atheists in foxholes. And
Yes.
what hap and seriously, and it happens that even myself, every so often, because I was brought up Roman Catholic and
Sure.
spiritualist, and even as a young boy, that's because I spent my summers visiting relatives in the Lilydale Spiritual
Yeah,
Assembly,
yeah,
and my school year was at St. Andrews in Sloan, New York.
yeah,
And I think a lot of it is that it's so ingrained in us from such an early age that it's almost like a safety switch. It switches, if you aren't careful, it will switch on.
yeah,
It's like on autopilot. And then all of a sudden you're like, Jesus, come and save me, and it's like,
yeah,
hold on, you kind of gone and you've weighed this out, and you have to really kind of introspection. Let me ask you this introspection.
yeah.
How much of what we do has to be from introspection?
I mean, probably the vast majority of it. I always say that, like mental health is really kind of what ties into my
Hmm.
craft more than anything. And you really kind of have to look at it like that. It's I think a lot of people romanticize it and romanticize the craft,
I
and
agree. I
they
agree.
forget that like the mundane kind of outweighs the mystical, if you will. So I think people, like we said, I think people are just very afraid of going out of their comfort zone.
I agree. I agree 100%. There's only a few people that do push
Yeah.
and really truly push out. Now,
Yeah.
here's we're running out of time because I got 1,000 other questions.
No, it's okay.
Jules, I got so many questions for you, but you'll be back on the show so I can ask you
Absolutely, I would love to.
some more wandering minstrel questions that I have.
Yeah.
Um, when the future of the craft, the perception, the concept of the future of our craft, we've survived. First of all, we've survived the great burning and all that, and
Oh,
we've
yeah.
survived a lot of the ignorance. We've
Cold.
survived, even like when you start looking at like the practitioners of voodoo and hoodoo that had to go in and hide it underneath a Christian format.
Yeah, they had to be
We've
cold about it.
Oh yeah, we had to survive. We've survived. The entire satanic
The
panic
same
that
panic?
happened.
Oh, yeah.
I and you know what the scary thing is I lived through that.
Oh,
Was old enough to remember that stuff,
yeah?
and all the false memories that were implanted during hypnosis and all that, and all that stuff.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
that came up. I've survived. When you start thinking about the resurgence of the Pentecostal movements,
Yes.
where they're where sometimes the pastors are out there spewing uh, untruths about this.
Yeah.
How do you feel that our future looks? What do you think what do you think in the future? How do you feel that will be, uh, that how we'll be accepted or survival at all?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely optimistic about it just because I do have like a platform where I see people from all ages, like all sexualities, all genders, coming to terms with spirituality, even if they are not necessarily agnostic, even atheists, they understand that there are scientific reasons why the craft can benefit you, even if it's just psychological. Um, so that's why I kind of approach every new client with compassion and understanding. I always tell people there are no silly questions. If you have a question, please ask. You're not going to be shunned. It's not like if we don't have the answer, we're going to tell you stop asking questions. I really think that there's a lot of people out there who have values like how I do and how you do. Um, but we're just kind of like suppressed a little bit. So people having conversations like this, I think it's really going to change for the better.
I do too. I do
Yeah,
too. We've survived this long.
we have.
We've we've survived the hunter gatherer stage. So if we could survive that, and we can survive the burning times, we can survive even further. So I think that's great. Now I want to thank you for being on, and I want you to stay on so I can thank you properly off the air.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
But thank you so much for being on. You're definitely fascinating. Tell everybody where they can find you, because I want other people to watch, because seriously, I enjoy watching. I enjoy the funny little goth things that you do. But I really enjoy when you sit down and you start explaining and teaching. And I mean, to me, it's an well-rounded, well, sleeve. I will call it a sleeve of communication, because through the sleeve comes the arm of knowledge.
Yeah.
So tell everybody how they can watch.
Well, I'm on a couple different platforms, so you can find me at the Hex Baby on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. I do multiple different forms of entertainment on all four.
Now, are you going to be? Tell me you're going to be speaking again.
Oh, yes, that is yes, absolutely. We don't know when the next one is just yet, but we've already been asked by a couple of people. We just haven't signed anything just yet.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. Because you and Cal really make a dynamic couple, and I really think that
Thank
people
you.
really need to hear your voice. And again, so many people, we've lost great voices, even like Rosemary Ellen Guiley has passed. Raymond Buckland has passed. I mean, so many people have passed now, and we need new people to take their place. And I think that you're one of those people that is destined to take one of their places. So you guys can. No, I'm not. Listen. Everybody will tell you that I don't stroke people too often when it comes to my belief systems, and I really think that you guys are ready. And you should have a more of a platform.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Stay tuned, stay on, and I'll be right back. Thank you again.
Of course. Bye, guys.
Guys, I want to thank everybody for listening in. I had a great time. Isn't she fantastic? She is really knowledgeable. And again, today was a free flow question answer type show because of the fact that I had so many questions to ask her and I didn't know where to start. But isn't she great? And Jules Nolan, the Hex Baby. You have to go and you have to listen. Now, before we leave, listen. Here in Buffalo, New York, we've had a tragedy, and I was just informed that there was another tragedy, another shooting, unfortunately in Texas. So, guys, just bear with me for a couple seconds. Mother, Father, God, you are known by 1,000 other names. Please send healing to the families who were affected and the communities that were affected by all of this senseless violence. We don't need to live in violence. We need to live in love. And all those who have hate in their hearts, may they find a balm, a vibrational balm to go and help them through these times. Amen. And I want to, and I also, one last thing, I want to go and say hi to all the kids at the Newstead Public Library that I did a cryptozoology talk last week, Tuesday, before I flew out. And I have to tell you what, guys, I have never had to go and field such tough questions from a crowd under the age of 15. They were, well, I think their homework assignments were to go and read everything about anything that had to do with cryptozoology, and they had me going. So anyway, guys, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank everybody for having the patience that I haven't been, for 2 weeks. We were off the air, a little hiatus, and we'll be back next week. And thank you. And we had a great guest. Ciao, babies. Hang out where the elite meet next to the dumpster stations. Be there. See you soon. Bye-bye.